and welcome. I'm Dr. Karen Panetta, and I am the IEEE Awards Board Chair. And we are here today to celebrate the recipient of the 2022 IEEE Richard M. Emberson Award, sponsored by the IEEE Technical Activities Award, to Fred Mintzer. Fred, congratulations.
Thank you so much, Karen. I am honored and humbled to be in the company of the other Emberson Award winners, and maybe just a tad surprised. You know, the things I worked on were often controversial in the beginning, but fortunately, some of them worked out pretty well.
We'll be talking more. We want to hear more about that. But we're also going to introduce our guests with us here today. We have Bruno and Mary Ward-Callan. So could you both introduce yourselves? Bruno?
Hi, everybody. My name is Bruno Meyer. I'm IEEE Technical Activities Board 2022 Vice Chair, and I'm very pleased to welcome Fred to receive this prestigious award. Thank you.
Hi, and I'm Mary Ward-Callan. I'm the Managing Director of Technical Activities at the IEEE. I have the honor and the privilege to work with the 47 societies and councils and to oversee the conference business within the IEEE. And I'm thrilled to be here, and congratulations, Fred. Fred and I've worked together a long time, so this is a wonderful opportunity to celebrate.
Awesome. So Fred, we're going to open up because you're receiving this award for outstanding leadership, including the IEEE Collaboratech and Tab Technology Center communities. So for those out there, I'm going to ask you to describe what Collaboratech is, but then I also want to know, how did you come up with this long before other people were even on the social media bandwagon?
Well, Collaboratech is the IEEE social networking platform. And one of the advantages of Collaboratech is that we write the rules. At the time Collaboratech was under consideration, there were other social networking platforms out there. And part of our experience was that they would change the rules to their advantage from time to time and disadvantage us, and it was hard for us to adapt. So to better serve our members, we needed a platform that we could write the rules for, so we could focus on serving our own members and our own communities.
But you also mentioned that we're educating not just IEEE members. You also mentioned something about Collaboratech being available to educate the world. Can you talk about that?
Yes, that's one of the wonderful aspects. One of the things we'd hoped for with Collaboratech is to be able to offer some materials to everybody and some materials to just members. And this gives us an entree into the whole world. There are high school students like me who had very little understanding of what an engineer is. They can log into our platforms now, or they can log into Collaboratech now and peek at what's going on and see what's happening in various engineering communities and get some sense for what an engineer is. And I think that's a wonderful aspect of Collaboratech.
And, you know, coming up with this proposal long before social media was out there and people didn't even know the value or the impact it could have, you must have had some nice challenges to propose this and to get consensus. Can you talk about those skills that you had to use to actually get this to come to fruition?
Yes, well, as when there's a disruptive technology on the horizon, there are lots of different opinions in IEEE about which way should go. Anywhere from we should ignore this to it should be mine. And one of the things I think is always important is talking with a community of interested people and learning from them what they know about this world and socializing ideas with them and trying to reach a consensus or at least a good position that will be of benefit to the members, more than just thinking about your own operating unit in IEEE.
And where do you pick up these skills? Where does a person find, where did you find all these skills? How did you manage to know how to do all this?
You know, in my professional career, I had jobs where not only did I work with technology, but I worked with customers. And when you're working with customers, it's important that you talk with them and have a discussion about what you're doing, so you both have a common understanding of what you're doing and supposed to do, so that at the end of the day, you both are happy with the result. So in those jobs, I developed skills to not only explain technology to others, but listen well to others about their needs and concerns and how they wanted to move forward to see whether we could reach a consensus about where to go.
And Bruno, you're as the vice president of TAB. Can you talk a little bit about your perspective of Fred's impact and some of the things that you see going on?
Yes, I want first of all to say a couple of words about Fred's career. I think he's so modest about the way he explains his career, and this is important for all IEEE members to understand. He had a very prestigious position at IBM, and he made things which were so unbelievable in the fields of signal processing, image processing, and getting to a point of leading the laboratory and the facility of the fastest computer in the world. And what I find is very important is to see some people with such high positions in industry taking the time to join IEEE work and join IEEE societies and meetings. And this is, I think, inspirational to all of us. We should make sure that we have people from industry, people from, let's say, a very important position joining us and being active in the society. And beyond this, Fred took the time to work to improve the way IEEE work could be shared amongst members globally. This Collaboratech, I mean, the collaboration, which is part of the name of Collaboratech, is part of it. And I really, I think that we should all be let's say, inspired by what was done. And technical activities board, as Mary reminded, is 47 different kind of topics board, which includes societies and councils, so many different topics. And it's important that all these topics should share some of their knowledge at one moment or another. And cooperation and collaboration between them is fundamental. I'm stopping there at this moment. Thank you very much.
Mary, can you elaborate more about, from your perspective of like, Fred is like the dream volunteer, but can you talk a little bit from your perspective of how, how you've seen his contributions or, or impact on IEEE?
Sure. I think, first of all, Fred's had a long career in volunteering. So the longevity is really helpful to see different levels within the IEEE, both at the committees under societies all the way into the society leadership and AdCom, and then moving on to the Technical Activities Board, which is this amorphously large board of 63 different individuals who have to come to consensus on something, and then to lead that board. And again, bringing that consensus of that group, trying to bring that group, which, sort of like herding cats a lot of times, into a model where they start to think about things collectively. And I like to think of the IEEE as this forum for conversation, right? The next thing that's important, the next topic, the breadth, the width. We have our own disciplines, but now everything is multidisciplinary and completely integrated with each other, so hard to pull anything apart. And I think Fred realized that in the beginning, and this idea of giving forums where not only could we have synchronous conversation at conferences, but we could have this asynchronous conversation in a platform like Collaboratech, and we could do more communicating to everybody, not just our members, not just the members of our societies, but also to everybody, opening it up to let people read what's there, get into Collaboratech if you're not a member, be able to see some of our content openly on an open page. And I think that was one of the big things that Fred brought into the storyboard for us and helping us to try and open our arms a little bit wider, which was, all part of us moving into the next generation of computing, if you will, into, as we move towards the metaverse, immersing ourselves in this new world. And I think that's really important to have taken some of those steps along the way. And, Fred's ability to, be thoughtful and level-headed and non-flappable during the conversation with such a large group of people trying to, bring consensus together was really important set of skills for us in terms of moving ourselves forward. And his deep technical knowledge was wonderful in terms of selecting different things that we would share with others, because he could tell the difference between a deep article and one that was more generally available that people would resonate to. I think that was all really wonderful. And Fred donated all his time to be able to do that. And being, when you get up into the tab VP, it's not an hour a week kind of a job. Yeah.
And I just want to mention, you brought up the fact about the interdisciplinary, across disciplinaries. So we talk about this, Fred, you started in one society, but you're not just in one society, but you also had the foresight to see that we have to bring the societies together. So many of us have multiple society affiliations. Can you talk a little bit about, how you even got into, you chose your first society and expanded?
Well, signal processing was my native field. I did a PhD thesis on it, and my first assignment in IBM was on signal processing. But working in industry, sometimes you don't have the opportunity to work on one technology for your whole career. The needs and the interests of the business move in various ways to different fields. And, if you want to have a fruitful and interesting career, it's good for you to move as the company's interests move. And fortunately, the IEEE helped me make those moves. We think of our societies as silos, but those societies have overlaps as well. And those overlaps can be very helpful to people that want to move from field to field. And our meetings often attract people from various fields. So there are opportunities to talk to people in various fields and learn about other things in IEEE that you might not otherwise know. So our organization makes us sort of uniquely qualified to help people in the electronics and computer industry move from one subfield to another subfield as their careers change.
Okay. Now, Bruno mentioned, not only are you an amazing, well-rounded individual, but you are a brilliant engineer. Can you take us back? What even got you interested in engineering? How'd you pick your field, and what brought you to IEEE?
When I was in high school, I was somewhat of a tinkerer and a builder. I built model planes, had a radio-controlled airplane, none of which intersected with my high school career very much, but I did enjoy mathematics a lot. And when it came time to go to university, I thought that electrical engineering might be a good fit for me, even though I was from a working class family and had very little appreciation for what an electrical engineer was. So I enrolled in electrical engineering, and that stab in the dark turned out very well. The courses matched my interest, the profession matched my interest, and so it's just been a wonderful match by accident.
By accident. That's how we find a lot of folks say that, by accident. Bruno, you mentioned, you mentioned about the Blue Gene project at IBM. Can you talk a little bit about the impact that you've seen, or some of the questions that you had for Fred on that?
Yes. I just want to, first of all, remind all listeners to this presentation that the fastest computers were needed to do lots of very important operations, from building airplanes, aircraft, rockets, and so on. But I understand that IBM even launched this computer, which at one stage was the fastest in the world, for some other purposes. So I would like Fred to come back on the reason why IBM launched this, this was in the race with the other great ones on this.
Well, IBM Research had a tradition of launching what they called grand challenge projects. These were projects where there was a goal that nobody could currently meet, and IBM would sign up to do it as a challenge for researchers and a focus for researchers. And the IBM Blue Gene project was one such challenge. It was intended to enable simulation of protein folding, which was computationally beyond the capabilities of computers of that era. So through some negotiations with corporate finance, funding was secured to build a supercomputer that would be capable of doing that. And one was intended for IBM research. And as it neared completion, my manager, actually my future manager, realized that there was a great need for somebody to coordinate the use of this computer with users so that it would be effectively used and the investment would have been seen as being very worthwhile. So I volunteered for that job, and I was well prepared for it because of my interactions in the IEEE, where everyone is your peer and you're often negotiating with your peers for a common good. So I was well qualified to take a job where I was dealing with the scientific community all over IBM to prioritize their needs and get them cycles on the great computer.
Yeah, and I see what just popped up. One of our former IEEE staff, Mr. Matt Loeb, just popped in to say congratulations. So, it's great to see that even after folks leave IEEE, they stay committed to us. And that's a great testament to Fred for all the great work that you've put in. Can you talk a little bit? Oops, go ahead.
I think it was Matt Loeb who said, there's a line in Hotel California. You can check out, but you can never leave.
And that is true about IEEE. Let's talk about how you even got into IEEE. What got you interested? What hooked you in?
When I became a graduate student, I started reading these papers, and these papers were all IEEE papers, and they were authored by IEEE people. And one of the exciting things that happened to me early in graduate school was the opportunity to go to an ICAST signal processing conference where I met people who had written those papers and who I really idolized at that time. And I could talk with them and socialize ideas. It was just wonderful. And that opportunity to interact with the IEEE community just hooked me.
So IEEE is the only place where you can really go and meet your rock stars of technology without getting thrown out. Mary, can you talk more about some of the conferences and things that have helped bring people together that IEEE does?
Sure. IEEE offers over 1,900 conferences a year in every technical topic area you pretty much could ever think about. We do both technical sponsorship and we do financial sponsorship. The ones that Fred mentioned is the signal processing flagship, one of their flagship conferences. They have two big ones each year. Most of our societies have big ones each year where they bring together their community and their authors, as well as panel discussions, good keynote speeches, get-together networking sessions, student sessions. Fred mentioned that we do a lot of student paper sharing, which is really important for the students coming up and the engagement of students within the organization as we move forward. We also offer women in engineering activities and young professional activities at those events to bring together those groups of people. So sort of birds of a feather, different collections of folks to be able to bring you together, even at the lower level, at the society level. So there's groups like, Women in Power, Women in Control, clever names. And then you also have the young professional groups. And we've done a good job on bringing young professionals to all of the societies at this point in time. So, conferences to me, we've, coming off of a 2-year virtual engagement party, so to speak. Now we're going back into in-person, which is really thrilling. And we're seeing how much people missed being away. And so, we're just starting that in-person engagement again, and it's thrilling. It's really exciting to see the people coming. We're coming up on some very big events. Our Transmission Distribution Conference, which is a power conference, is a very large event for us, probably one of the largest we put on. And it's coming up in the next 2 weeks. And we're sold out pretty much on our floor space. So it's really exciting to see this stuff starting to come back again, because that interpersonal engagement, we could do a little bit on the virtual side, but it was nothing like the in-person engagement. So this is hopefully going to be a new world that we move into. And we've learned some good things. So we will probably leave some things in the virtual space. But we also will go back to some of the engagement where people really enjoyed the interpersonal relationships, meeting the rock stars of the world, and being able to just, basically talk and shoot at each other and, have a little bit of a debate going on sometimes. And it's that discourse, that forum for conversation that I think makes IEEE unique. It gives us an opportunity in the future to really be able to discuss some really difficult topics in the ethics space and other spaces as technology moves further in the future.
Now, I'm a graduate dean, so I know students are always like, how do I get into these graduate programs? And I keep telling them, just sending in a piece of paper now is not going to get you there. And we've talked a lot today about the benefits, but Fred, you're all about future and empowering young people. Can you talk about like advice that you would have for young people? You have this great insight. Tell us, young people, listen, what Fred's going to speak now.
Well, I think it's important in life to make a decision that you're going to do something and then pursue it. You may find out it was the wrong thing, but that's a much better situation to be in than to spend years trying to decide which way to go. Mm-hmm. Get involved. And the IEEE is a very friendly place to get involved. There are thousands of opportunities.
And what I wanted to talk more about the skills, because young people today think that if they have just amazing technical skills, that's enough. And I think that you demonstrate that that's not true. Can you talk about that?
Well, I think, a person with technical skills can survive very well with just using the technical skills. But there's an opportunity to have a much more rich and rewarding career. If you're also working with customers or people outside the field, our technologies affect people in all walks of life all over the world, and you can be part of that. And if you want to be part of that, the IEEE will help you build the skills that make you fluent in that larger world.
But what kind of challenges did you, encompass? Was you coming up either in your career, your education? Because one of the things that students think is, you just mentioned set a goal, go for it. But everybody thinks I'm going to do that nice linear straight, line. And we all know that that's not true. So can you talk about, your own challenges along the way or pivots that you had in your career?
Well, so I will admit that when in high school, talking to my guidance counselor, he said, "You have no academic ability. You should take a business course." And when I talked about electrical engineering, he said, "No, you should never go into electrical engineering. That's too hard a field." And when I talked about going to a fairly middle-sized university, Rutgers, he said, "No, you should go to a small college someplace, because you don't have any skills for interacting. You're too quiet a person." Oh. And so sometimes you need to think boldly, that your abilities may be a little bit greater than what people are telling you. And so there are opportunities out there that you might want to explore.
And that is actually one of the number one filters that prevents young people from going into the STEM and tech engineering fields, is because someone they respect, like a guidance counselor or a teacher, has told them, no, you're not good enough for this. And that is the number one reason why engineering is still the most underrepresented field for women. So one of the things that we need to change, and I think that you just really demonstrated, is that we need young people to feel empowered to make these decisions, even when people they respect are saying, no, you can't. So, you were smart enough to have the confidence to say, well, you know what, thank you for your advice, but I'm going to do this anyway. And I think that if, we could have that as a takeaway, I think people really need that. So, and it's not always easy to do, right? Because if you mentioned that your parents, weren't coming from engineering themselves, so you didn't have that someone there in the back saying, no, you're going to do engineering. Whereas you had to find it within yourself to do that. So, that alone makes you a champion. And we thank you for that message. Bruno, do you want to ask another question?
Yes, I want to because we've seen the magnificent career of Fred, and we've seen also how modest he is. I mean, this is also inspirational because nothing that he presents as, easygoing, it was easygoing. I mean, just building this Blue Gin thing was not easygoing. It's a tremendous challenge. So my question is, I believe that I would like to know what Fred thinks the main challenges for IEEE are. I mean, what should IEEE be looking at? What would Fred want to tell us who are for instance, me as a leader of TAB in 2022, what kind of challenges he thinks we should face or are facing us?
We live in a world where electrotechnology, our technologies, affect everyone in the world, and profoundly so. And, the great challenge for us is to spread the understanding of what we do and how we do it with many communities, especially young people, so that we can attract them to the field. Field is wonderful. You don't get rich, but you make enough money to live comfortably. You get to do very interesting things, and you get to impact society. So it's important to reach the next generation of engineers and spread the word.
Thank you very much.
I was going to say, we do have a lot of young people who do lots of entrepreneurial ventures and get very, very rich. So,
yes, and the other thing about this is that there are some communities that don't hear the word in their regular lives. Women hear it less, minorities hear it less, people in disadvantaged economies hear it less. And so it's a great challenge for us to spread the word about how wonderful and what the opportunities in our field are.
And when you look forward to Collaboratech, how would you like to see it evolve in the future? Like you heard Mary just talk about the metaverse. Do you want to maybe we should define what the metaverse is first, Mary? You want to define it for us?
I think it's the more immersive world. They're taking the internet and going the next step further to be more immersive in your engagement within it. I fundamentally am not agreeing that we're going to give up in-person discussions and in-person conversations, but it is true that a metaverse could bring together people that may not normally be able to do it, and with challenges of climate change and other things, amount of travel may reduce. So it may be very useful to have a metaverse in which we can engage, but I hope we still will meet people in person as well.
Okay, Fred?
One of the great challenges that's been somewhat addressed is the movement of information, which when I was a graduate student was one way. Papers came to you. They were printed. It took a long time. And then as time went on, the internet arrived and information was more rapidly available, but it was done in analog to the physical world. And so information was just pushed to people. Now we're in an age where you can have more interaction online. We've especially been impressed with that the last few years, as it's really made life much more possible for us in the pandemic age, where we can get online and interact with people. Collaboratech is one part of the story in interacting with people online. And I'd like to see it become easier to interact with people. And I'd like to see much more content distributed through it and many more people interacting on it. It's not a question of making the platform better so much as just convincing people that this is the way of life we should adopt.
To engage. We want more people to
engage.
Absolutely. Well, Fred, we are super honored to have you with us. We want to offer our congratulations again. And I want to thank our sponsors, the IEEE Technical Activities Board, for sponsoring this medal to make it possible. We are so happy and to see you, and hopefully we'll see you at our Vixen Honor Ceremony in May, to see you in person. And any closing remarks? Like Fred, I just want to let you close, and and Bruno and Mary, if you want to have any closing remarks.
we have wonderful opportunities ahead of us. And we should look at those and how we can use them to better serve the communities.
Bruno?
I think it's a blessing for TAP to have volunteers like Fred. I mean, just inspirational. Well done. And also, I mean, thank you very much.
Mary?
I too want to thank Fred for all of his volunteering and for the lovely career that he's had at the IEEE and all the time that has been spent to make us a better organization. Thank you.
And to all of you watching, thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you all in San Diego at our Vixen Honor Ceremony. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.